Hi, my name is Hani Martinez Ward, and we have had the Ward Law Group for 10 years. I want to tell you a little bit about our story because I feel like that's what makes us different. When I was 14 years old, I crossed the border with my mom and my little baby brother. When we crossed the border, we didn't have any money. I didn't speak English, and I just had a backpack with me. That's the first time I faced dealing with the U.S. laws. When I got there, somebody had to decide my destiny and my fate, whether I was gonna get sent back to my country or whether I was gonna have a better life here. And that marked me in my life, and that's why I decided to become a lawyer. Today, I help immigrants who have been injured in a car accident, and it is important for me to be able to help and fight for people that cannot stand up for themselves and that cannot speak the language just like I didn't.
I have the privilege and honor of being married to this wonderful woman. She is my law partner. We started the firm together, as she said, 10 years ago. And when I grew up, I always knew that I wanted to stand up for the little guy. You know, as a kid on the playground, I would stand up for kids who were getting picked on by bullies. And I went to work for a big defense firm first in my career, but I started looking at the kinds of clients I was representing and realized that I was better representing the little guy. So I came into our law firm with the idea of standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. And our message and our mission was really 100% unified. To tell you a little bit about our firm, I appreciate the introduction by Ken, and I just give a shout out for PILMA. Really amazing organization. I've been in a lot of organizations. PILMA, I believe, delivers the best value for the buck, and that's at all levels. And so it helps me get with like-minded people who can help give us information on how to improve. Everything you're going to see today has been something we've worked through, and we've talked to other law firms and what they're doing. And by the way, the process is not complete. We do a lot more than this, but I want to give you some bullet points that will help you. But PILMA is an amazing organization. I appreciate it. A lot of the great relationships I have are through PILMA. So talk about our story for a second, where we came from. So my wife and I started the firm 10 years ago with a fold-out table, a laptop computer. We don't always say this, but we also had $465,000 in debt, and we had $10,000 in the bank. Who would have backed that business venture? Right? I'm talking to my buddy Sagi, who's here in the front row. I asked him that very question last week, and I want to share something with you. Sagi and our firm together were able to get a settlement in excess of $100 million. Working together, making sure we stay focused on the interests of the clients. It's confidential. I can't say anything else about the case, but it's important that you find people who are similar and like-minded with you who can help support you and your firm. On top of that, of course, as Ken pointed out, we have 125 employees. Let me go ahead and start the slides. Who we are. Here's our high arc. We started our firm 10 years ago, but what happened 3 years ago? COVID. And we were in COVID, we had 50 employees, okay? During COVID, it was a game changer. It sucked. We were in Dade County, and they shut us down for 3 months. Fortunately, we saw it coming. We moved everybody remote. But what did that open the door for? You see, a lot of times adversity will carry with it the seed of a greater opportunity. Once we had everybody home, we realized that we can work with people anywhere, offshore. And so we've added virtual assistants. So we started in 2020 with 67 in-house people and 8 virtual assistants. 2021 went to 81, 2022 went to 123, and now we're at 128 total headcount with 53 virtual assistants. And I will tell you that the growth of our firm is going to be driven more by the use of virtual assistants. How many of you have ever had an employee send you an email, thank you for this job lets me feed my family, and I really appreciate everything you do for us. I really love working at the Ward Law Group. Who has ever received an email like that? Anyone? Anyone? One, right? Right? My VA send me emails like that. Because for them, this is a serious thing. This is what makes a difference between, it could be life and death for them. And so they're very grateful, and I'm grateful for them. So we make sure that we give them the best attention we can give them, and we'll talk about some of the things we do to have VAs involved in our organization. So, what are we gonna do? My wife said, we wanna make sure that we tell you about the big mistakes that we made in hiring and onboarding so you can avoid those pain points that we all have. So we're gonna have a process that'll help you work through that. I'm talking to trial lawyers, right? You guys are all trial lawyers? Yeah? All right? I mean, you guys are asleep. Come on, wake up. Let's go. Don't make me yell on this feedback mic. Trial lawyers, right? You guys are national trial lawyers? You're all trial lawyers. Who's a trial lawyer? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Come, oh my gosh, half of them. Come on. All you guys are trial lawyers. I'm getting ready to bust you though. So here's the deal. What is the mistake that trial lawyers make in the hiring and interview process? What's the mistake? You make 3 mistakes.
Getting involved at all.
Great point, Ben. Yeah, Ben Glass is here. So, and this is for all of your people too, over-reliance on your gut, right? That's number 1, number 2, and number 3. My trial lawyers, you do depositions, right? You do killer depositions. You uncover the most scandalous details in depositions. So you think if I'm interviewing somebody, this is cool. I'm going to be able to rip them apart. I'm going to do my little cross-examination. I'm going to find out everything I need to find out. That does not work. You rely on your gut. You lack objective criteria. And you lack a clear vision about what you want as far as your hires. And so where do we go? We end up hiring somebody who made us feel good in our gut. By the way, those people who make us feel good in our gut, they're like us, right? Or at least they're acting like us. I like that guy. He's got moxie. We're going to really do well. And the next thing you know, they're stealing your clients and running off to your competitor, starting their own firm. Or worse, they're posting bad reviews on you for Indeed and Glassdoor saying, you know, what a piece of junk you are. And the truth is because you didn't go far enough to have objective criteria and have different people interviewing that person. So this is, in my opinion, the number 1. Ben points it out, being involved in the hiring at all. I would agree with that, mostly because of this. You over-rely on your gut, you override, you make that gut decision, and all of a sudden you're saddled with somebody who's a non-performer. Let's talk about mistakes in the onboarding process. So after you make a hiring decision, you really love this candidate, you want to bring them on, then what happens? Well, you bring them on because you're desperate to get them to produce, you rush them through training, or you chuck them in the deep end. As lawyers, who was chucked in the deep end? I was. Nobody gave me any training, right? You were, my trial lawyer was, right? You're chucked in the deep end. You want them to produce something, and so you have no systematized process for training them. And so you're throwing the folks off the deep end, and is it any wonder that they sink, right? You're going to have a bunch of people sink. So you have this, in your desperation, you throw them in too early. You lack a system for training. It takes a lot of work to have a system for training. In your desperation, you want to get them through the training really fast, and so you overlook some of their mistakes. And all of a sudden, you're throwing somebody who's unprepared, and who are they dealing with? Your clients. And the client all of a sudden is saying, Hani Martinez Ward sucks because this case manager went and said something they weren't trained to properly say. So we have a lack of system for training. And then third, and I think maybe in many ways some of the most important, you have a lack of feedback from your trainees, right? If you're not talking to the people in the process of what their training is, where you feel like you're not being trained properly, you're going to have no idea. You've got no feedback whatsoever in the process. Well, how does this happen? Let me tell you, when I get an email from somebody that says they quit, right, I ask them, what could we have done to improve the process for you? Especially if they quit in the first 3 months. What can we have done? And I try and drill, was this just somebody who slipped our hiring process in the net? Is it somebody who really has a personal issue that's going on? I really try and dig and find out what was it that was really the reason why they're leaving. Maybe they were assigned with a manager who they didn't act well with or didn't interface well with. So I want to make sure that I get all the information. If they're gone, if they're resigning, they're already gone. But I want to use that as an opportunity to grow the process a little bit better and see where they feel like they've fallen through or fallen down. Solutions for your pain. Now we get the fun stuff. We all have a pretty clear idea about why we practice law, right? We all got into it for various reasons. I wanted to stand up to bullies. My wife was an immigrant who had fear about the legal system, didn't speak English, couldn't assert her rights. And she knows there are other clients who she wants to stand up for who have that similar process or have a similar situation. But we think we know what our culture and our core values are, right? Because we're the bosses. And we think our employees all know what it is too, right? If you went and asked your employees what your core values are, who thinks they would get an answer that is very similar to what you believe your core values are? Who thinks? Come on, raise your hands. I can wake you up. Come on. Come on. You think they would? Wrong! Absolutely not. We have on our wall written our core values in both of our offices. They see it every day when they walk in. And I ask a question for somebody who's been with us for 6 months, what are our core values? And I get things like family, dedication. Like, what are you reading? It's on the wall in the lobby. Like, you don't even look at it. And we have a video on what our core values are. So if you don't at least have a video and quiz people about it, they don't know what your core values are. They will make up their own core values and put them in place of what your core values are. And why is this a problem? Because without core values that are clearly communicated, you can't build a culture. We hear about this, and my wife's going to talk about millennials in a second. We hear this idea about culture. But if you're not intentional about communicating what your message is, with what your culture is and what values drives you, you can't screen people in the hiring process. You can't hire people to those values. And you certainly can't re-educate them if they have something that's at odds with what your core values are. And so core values are really key. If you don't know what your core values are, or you don't have something written up on the wall, go home. This is number one. Go home, sit down with your top 5 people and say, tell me every value you think that this firm represents. You deselect, deselect, deselect until you get between 3 and 5. I have 7. We have 7. Those are the values of the firm. Our values are as follows. Service to the client. That's number 1. Service to our teammates. Number 2. Service to our community. Number 3. Faith, accountability, leadership, and loyalty. Right? They're on our website. We have videos about this. It's absolutely critical that people know what that means. And then we ask people, what does that value mean to you? And the other piece of this that's really important is when you're interviewing people, and we'll talk about the interview process in a second, you ask questions about your core values. Can you give me, candidate, can you give me an example of where service was important in your life? If it really is important, they will have a story. Can you give me an example of where you went above and beyond for somebody? Maybe it was their friend, maybe it was their coach, maybe it was their teacher, maybe it was their grandmother. But I want to see somebody who can actually have a demonstrated record, objectively verifiable, at least in the interview process, of something they did to serve somebody else. It's critical because what do? We serve people, right? It's what we do as trial lawyers. So we want to make sure that we have that value front and center during the hiring process. Now, I said my wife was going to talk about millennials. Selling yourself, you've got to till the soil. Okay, I also look at us as farmers. I got a lot of analogies, a lot of Bible analogies. You got to till the soil, right? We're planting seeds. So you want to prepare the soil when you're trying to hire somebody. So step 1 is, let's do a little homework. Let's do a little background. You want to till the soil. You want to start getting your story out there. Just like you try and get your story out for clients, you want to get your story out for people who are going to work with you to help them start deselecting themselves from your job. So now I'll turn it over to my wife. She's going to talk about millennials and what this really means in our initial stage of the hiring process when people are getting to know us before we've interviewed them.
Yeah, so I'm a millennial, and I've done some research as to what do millennials want when they're looking for a job. The first thing that they want is purpose. They want to feel like their job matters. They don't want to go clock in, clock out. They want to make sure that they're making a difference for somebody else. So we're going to teach you along the attracting candidates or selling our firm to bring people in, how we do that to attract more millennials and young attorneys coming into the firm. The second thing they want is growth. So they don't want, they're willing to start in client support or at a lower level, but they want to have a growth path. So we'll show them how different employees grew up within the company, and I'm going to show you videos like that. The next thing that they want to have is a work-life balance. I know many of you, like my husband, the older generation doesn't believe in work-life balance. Just kill yourself to death.
It's a lie. Work-life balance means sit in pajamas in your bed, right? Is that what it means, right? By the way, my attorneys are here, so I'm sorry, guys. This is what I talk about when you're not around. Work-life balance is a lie. It doesn't exist.
But we care. Young people care. Why? We want to integrate our work life with our personal life. So we're going to show you in our firm, through merchandise, to dressing up, looking cool, how we're able to integrate to promote our physical and mental well-being. And lastly, we want collaboration. I know all of you trial lawyers want to be the big dog, the top dog, but millennials, we like to work in teams, we like to collaborate, we like to bounce off ideas of each other, so we're going to show you how we promote working on a team at the Word Law Group. So this is important. You can go to the Word Law Group Indeed page. This is a link. Take a picture if you want, because you can copy this. You can do this yourself. Why join us? So Indeed is the one website where we recruit the most candidates. At the beginning, we have who we are, then pictures of the different teams. If they want to start in pre-lit, if they want to do litigation, if they want to do demand. Then at the bottom is why work at the Word Law Group. We put a screenshot, but if you want to see the whole video, it's going to be there. We also have community events that we do, so service to the community and service beyond the border. And finally, we have like fun activities, like we did a firm cruise and we did a management retreat. All of that is in there if you want to check it out. We also have 66 employees review. Like Greg said, our company has been here for 10 years, so we have employees as old as 8 years in the firm. So they talk about what they like, what the culture, so it says pros, pay, balance, fun, atmosphere. And you can see all of the review. If you want to dig, go in there.
Let me just say at this point, you have to ask for these. You must ask. We've got a great team, and I love my team. I really, really do. No one did an employee review on their own. They will go and give you a smear review on their own, but they will not give you a positive review. And you know what? It just is the way that we are in the world. You have to ask. We also have over 2,000 five-star Google reviews from real clients with real cases. We have to ask for every single one of those. And you know what we ask at the end is, do you feel like you get five-star service? Do you feel like you're having a five-star experience here at the Word Law Group? If so, will you please do a review? And we ask this to the employees. You've got to ask. I know it's a humbling experience. And maybe they're going to say, no, it's 4-star. I'd take a 4-star review too, by the way. I would. 3 stars. Okay, let's talk. What's your problem? You know?
So I know you guys.
No, I'm kidding.
I know you guys have awesome employees. Ask them to do Indeed reviews with the employees that you really like, and you know that they're going to be there for you and for your team. The next thing is, growth. As we talked about millennials, the first girl, her name is Karen. She came from Cuba. She's been in the company for 6 years. She started as client support receptionist. Today, she's one of the top managers at the Word Law Group. So before the candidate comes in for an in-person interview, if it's a girl, we send a picture and a video of Karen. This is how she grew in the company. Javier Pacheco, he was our driver, and he learned and he started being around us, and today he's the traditional marketing manager for the firm. So we have a video talking about his story, how he came from Venezuela with a marketing degree, didn't know what to do, and we trained him, and today he's one of our top managers. And Henry, he worked for FedEx for 10 years, delivering boxes. But he was very friendly, very outgoing. We thought he could be a good sales intake person. And today, he's a top investigator intake person of our firm. So we also sent a video talking about his experience. And people are willing to take a chance on themselves. Especially after COVID, we find that when we send this video, they really are able to want to change and make a different career path. We also send these videos because, as we said, they don't want to be clocking in, clocking out. They want to make an impact. So this is service to the community. We volunteer in the I Have a Dream Foundation, and we send them a video of what we did, which is basically kids underprivileged and that they're not able to pay for the school, so we walk them all the way through college. This is something that was super successful to our millennials. Annual backpack drive. What we do, we actually show up to a trailer home or a community, and we go with our team and we give out backpacks. And millennials felt like they were really making a difference. It wasn't a donation. It wasn't something that they were now seeing. They did it themselves. And we also have something called Beyond the Border. And because I'm not from this country, where we help in Venezuela and we help in India, and we partners with charities to do that. Again, all these videos get sent to them before they actually come into the in-person interview. So this is the selling portion before they get the interview.
And let me just interject here. So by the way, this is marketing for cases too, right? I mean, we're giving value out, we're giving back to the community. We really believe in it. And I'll tell you another thing. We have, 8 VAs in Nicaragua. My wife and I help support through a church, an orphanage. We help build and support an orphanage in Nicaragua. You better believe that the Nicaraguan VAs love our company. Why? Because we were giving back to their country before we even hired them. We were already giving back, and so they see that commitment. When I told people, we did a food drive and we provided food in Nicaragua, the Nicaraguan VAs are like, oh my gosh, I never realized you did that. But this is just good people. We're good people. We want to give back. And you have to start thinking about how can you message that. So it's part of your marketing, but also part of your hiring and onboarding process. So this is all before they even get an interview. This is what they're getting emails with this stuff.
If you want to see videos and replicate it, it's also in the Indeed page. This is something that we make it easy and simple for you to get home and do it yourself.
Okay. So this is the recruitment process, right? And this hiring funnel, you can take a picture of it. I don't even know if we use this one, but it's the prettiest one I have, so I put it in there. And I say this, we use this at some point. I think we've moved on from this. But you want to have a graphic representation for your team members, because what Ben pointed out is true, Ben Glass, what he pointed out is true. You want to be involved the least in the hiring process eventually. You want to systematize your hiring process, super key. So you want to have a graphic representation you can give to anybody who's involved in the hiring process. Now, at the very beginning, I like to have just one person doing this. Why? Because it gives you consistency. So I know you may be hiring for different departments or different partners, but the truth is you want to have one person doing your initial screening and following the initial process. We actually have a recruiter now. We hired somebody who was in our firm in another department. We saw she had aptitude for that kind of recruiting thing. So we brought her in, and she's the one who does the first initial steps in the hiring process. But you need to have this because this makes it very simple. Everybody knows what's next. How much problem Ben pointed out, lack of communication, right? Do you want to be telling your secretary, now move this candidate to step 2? No. You want them to be able to do it without you overseeing it so you get to have the most meaningful impact at the end of the process. So that's a hiring funnel. And by the way, I'll send you guys a hiring funnel if you follow us on Instagram and just ask for it. I'll give you some great takeaways from this. Here's another big problem that we make. We know what we want up here, right? Getting it out onto paper and hiring around that. This is the over-reliance on your gut. You're like, I see somebody's got skills, I see somebody's got qualities, talents, I like them. We don't actually have objective standards. We don't have an objective job description that we can use to start checking against their job history. Now, I'm not saying you want to hire necessarily somebody who has no experience or lots of experience, but the truth is you need to have some sort of checklist that you can go through. So before you post that ad, you want to have that job description. And you know what? The job description becomes the ad. Other thing in the job description, we always ask things like, for investigators in intake, are you a people person? Are you self-starter? Do you need to be supervised closely? We have the questions, and again, we're developing a conversation with the candidates like we develop a conversation with our clients. In the middle of the marketing process, they're coming into a conversation that's already been started. So I know the questions that are being asked, and they are many times self-selecting themselves out of the process. They say, oh, I'm not really a self-starter. But we are actually considering everybody at this point for every position we have open. We have not winnowed anybody, because I'll tell you why in a minute. So we have the job description, which becomes the job post, and the checklist for things that you're looking for in the candidate. So what do? So you put it on Indeed, right? I've used all of the websites out there. Indeed, we have our best ROI for Indeed. We're looking at going back and using a bunch of websites again and testing to see what our cost per applicant is with other websites like Glassdoor, Monster, whichever the other websites are. But Indeed has been the best for us on a cost benefit or ROI standpoint. But you got to review the applications. One person reviewing the applications. We're doing basic viability test. Do they have a resume that actually looks like a resume, right? If they're not putting enough time into a resume that looks like a resume, you do not want that person in your firm, period, full stop. I had an argument with my managers about this. They're like, well, what if they don't speak English? Listen, I don't have time for that now. We got to make sure they have taken enough time to put their job history and a couple of sentences about their job. The other big thing I'm looking for, this is obvious, you do not want a job hopper, right? Unless it's a job like marketing or IT where one-year contracts are common, you want to make sure they've got some demonstrated history. So we're already cutting about 50%, maybe more, of the applicants out at this process. They haven't even passed the initial viability test of having a resume that maybe has a couple of skills we're looking for, and they don't look like they have job hoppers. If there's a gap in the resume, I'll ask, right? We'll probably advance them because you never know what somebody may be dealing with. But if you have job, I'm going to say no to that candidate. We're not going to waste our time with that. The next step is the phone interview. Now, this is important. I'll give you these phone questions. Again, if you message us at the end on Instagram, I'll give you our initial phone questions. This is, again, same person who screened the resumes is making the phone calls. Again, for consistency's sake, you want to make sure that you streamline. So train one person in your office, could be an assistant, to ask these questions. Just go through, have the questions, fill it out. They type up a sheet that's going to go out to all of the hiring managers or all the managers hiring, and they're going to have this very, very nice template. This is where you start injecting your core values. Okay, this is where you're going to start asking a question like, give me an example where you went above and beyond to serve somebody. Give me an example where you experienced accountability or lack of accountability, and what did that teach you? Depending on which core value, we have a few, you want to start penetrating their mindset about core values, asking them questions that nobody asks, right? We also ask practical questions like, what's your salary range? And they're going to give you a conservative salary range because they don't want to cut themselves out of the process, right? But then you have it written down. You say, wait, you told the phone interview person you only want $16 an hour, now you're telling me $24 an hour, right? How many times does that happen to you guys, right? They come in, they're like, oh yeah, no, I'll take any job. And then they're like, now I want 25 bucks an hour. And I'm sorry, this isn't the right position because my budget is 17 as a receptionist, for example. So we want to make sure that you deal with those. The other things we ask, and they're on the list, but I'll tell you in case you don't get the list. Is there anything that will stop you from giving us more than a year commitment? How many times you hired somebody 3 months later, they say, oh, by the way, I'm going to law school. Happens, right? I would have never hired them 3 months. It takes at least to train them, maybe 6 months before they're even useful. And so 3 months? Or are you anticipating a move? Do you have reliable transportation? For people who are what we call client support, which is our reception department, do you have reliable transportation? You can't have somebody not showing up, right? Do you have reliable transportation? Is there anything that would keep you from working 40 hours a week or for part-time 20 hours a week? So we ask those questions at the very beginning. You, as an employer, do not need to be asking those questions. This is what you have the screening process for. You go through this. This will also cut out maybe between 10 and 20% of the candidates. For certain positions, we also use, this is a great tool, Spark Hire. I recommend everybody use it. We have 5 questions. You send them a link. They video their responses, particularly for client-facing people to make sure that they're articulate. And for us, we do 2 or 3 things here. Number 1, we ask, what do you know about our firm? Did they take the time to watch the videos, right? We want to see if they actually have invested anything in the firm. And many times they may say no, or they may say, oh, I know your personal injury firm. That's a D answer, right? That's not an A answer. But they say, hey, I really like your values. I like what you do, overseas. I have this connection. I used to work for this charity. Whatever it is, we'll have something where they're talking about something. And by the way, if they haven't watched it, they're going to go back and watch it now because they have to answer this question. Another question we ask is, tell us some things that your old boss could have done better. What do you think we're getting at with that? Right, we get 2 things. Number 1, we can see if they have an eye towards detail and something that may improve our firm. But more importantly, we're going to see, do they go on for 5 minutes about how terrible their old boss was? Probably going to be a big minus in the hiring process, right? How many times have you had somebody who's totally charming, they bring you coffee and donuts every morning, and then when they leave, you don't know who they were, they're talking about you bad online, right? They and their buddies all do Google reviews about how terrible you are and all these things. I mean, it happens even to us. Some people slip the net. But you want to make sure that you're going to see what's their sentiment at this, because a lot of people will misread that question and they'll just go off on their old boss. The other thing is, what was the last question? I can't see it.
The bilingual.
Oh, bilingual. This is important for us because we're in Miami, Florida, and most of our clients are Spanish speakers. We only do Spanish advertising. So are you bilingual? A lot of people will say, how many of you guys have you hired somebody who says, yeah, I speak Spanish, and you realize you're using Google Translate for Spanish, right? I've had it, right? I mean, you got, Hani Martinez. I'm like, oh, yeah, she's from Miami. Martinez, she speaks Spanish. They're like, yeah, I speak Spanish. And you're like, we can have the conversation. And they're like literally typing in the words on Google Translate. I kid you not, it's happened, right? Back when we were young. So we make sure that they can speak Spanish. We have them answer questions in Spanish on the Spark Hire. And by the way, we send the Spark Hire to every hiring manager again, so they can review the candidates to see if it's somebody who they think will be a good fit. Mm-hmm. Okay, clicker's not working. Okay, now we're at the really important part of the presentation. Where's Jay? There he is, right there. Jay Henderson. So in PILMA, one of the great benefits you get is you have people who've been tried and tested by people just like you. And so, in fact, I met Jay at Ben Glass's event, but we were too small to use him, and he had this process, and I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds complicated. It was probably 3 or 4 years, I want to say, maybe 5 years. We circled back and met Jay again through Ken at PILMA. So we are entering the phase of the hiring process called testing. All right, they've cleared the phone interview, they've cleared the Spark Hire. It looks like things are looking good, so we go and we administer a test. I'm going to tell you, if you're looking for a cheap test, do not use Jay. Pre-qualifying Jay, I'm pre-qualifying for you. Do not hire Jay. And I say cheap, I don't know what your cost is. I don't think it's expensive because I will tell you, time? I don't have time. He will save you some tremendous headaches. So every hire at our firm is tested, and he makes sure that he communicates with us what department they would fit in and how, and basically some of their pluses and minuses, so we know going in. Not only every candidate, every VA, and we test our vendors too at this point, because we want to see if we're going to be able to work with that vendor, if it's going to be seamless or not. So we use Jay's technology. I found it to be very great. He has the book, The Ultimate Guide to Hiring Superstars in Any Small Business, and he has this performance process. We also coach personally with Jay, like he coaches us individually. Don't try and hire him for that because I'm going to keep him busy for the next 10 years. But he's really a great asset for the firm, and this is a big plus for PILMA and Ben, for that matter, Ben Glass. But also, it's really a great opportunity to meet with somebody who can help coach you for your shortcomings as well, and whatever limitations you have. So I strongly endorse.
But I wanted to say like a true story that happened to me with Jay. I was like during COVID, we were getting 200 cases, then we went to 300 cases, then we went to 400 cases a month. And that's why we needed to recruit so many people. One day I just called Jay crying. I'm like, Jay, I don't know what to do. I either have to stop my marketing and not get cases and put it on pause, or I need to get people fast enough. I cannot sit there with Greg, looking at resumes, going through all of this. I'm exhausted. Clients are calling. They want to meet us. What do I do? And then he actually sat with me. He's like, Let me get back to you. Let me look at a couple of people. He got people on our team. He started looking through his profiles and he said, you got a girl in accounting. Her name is Marcia. She will be a good recruiter. Put her in this position to recruit and do all this process and she'll get you candidate. And I was crying. I stopped crying. I wiped my tears. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I don't know what else to do. So I did that. And Marcia is our recruiter today. And that's how we went from 50 employees all the way to the 120 something. So it does work. If you feel lost, if you don't know what to do, if you need to move your pieces in your team and you're just not thinking clearly, you don't know how, that I do it with Jay. So
Jay's made a big difference in our firm, honestly. It's really been great. So that's your plug, Jay. Now you take care of everybody else. But don't take them away from me, because I got to tell you, I can't function without Jay. And then the next thing is the DISC assessment. Obviously, there are other tests. There's Colby, Colby Print, Wonderlic, all those tests. We have used them from time to time. We're not using those tests right now. We're using just DISC and Jay in the hiring process, but you want to get what works right for you. You know, you may find that some people swear by Wonderlic, like it's more like a aptitude test. We didn't really find it was useful for what our process was, but you can use it too. It's not as expensive as some of the other ones. It's useful, but DISC we found had been good. Why? Because for eyes, we're looking for people who are client-facing or interactives, and for accounting, I'm looking for cautious people, right? So the D's, that's more managers, but I'd hire a manager who's not a D. And S is stability. 70% of people in the world are stability, so that's okay, but you got to understand that when you change things, stability people don't like it. But at least I know going in. Right? And so we train them, by the way, on our firm cruise retreat every year on the DISC profile and what we all are, so other people can know. When you talk to me, you better be direct. I'm a D. You better be direct. Do not waste my time. Don't chit-chat. Come in, tell me what you need to get out. Right? I'm sure a lot of you guys are like that too. You're traveler, you don't want to waste time. Right? Unless you're, at a cocktail party and you're having ear and eye. But we use the DISC assessment. Okay. Next is in-person interviews, and this is really like, they're doing real well if they get to the in-person interviews. So I'll turn that over to my wife at this point.
So after all of that, we finally get excited to bring them into the office, and we're super excited because they jumped through a lot of hurdles, and they're finally here. So what do we do at the in-person interview? We give them the tour of our office. So the interview process happens at that meeting room. That's where we meet with our managers daily to remind them of our core values. So we explain again at the in-person interview our core values, and they see it on the wall. We walk them through the kitchen. So here's our core values again: service, service, service. And they see the atmosphere, the collaboration, people having a break, having a drink, hanging out together. The other thing that we do is that we bring 2 managers to the interview. The manager that's interested in hiring them, and an objective manager that doesn't want to hire them to be neutral. Why? Our managers get desperate. They want people in, and they're going to make decisions fast and on the go because they want to fill a position. So the managers are not allowed to compare notes, and they're not allowed to be in the interview process at the same time. At the end, they're turning their sheet, and then if it's both yes, we make a decision. If it's yes or no, then we kind of like round table it to see what they didn't like, what they like, to get finally to the next step. 3 reference checks, and obviously screening. It's important. We found those things, a lot of things through screening, so make sure you do your screening and make sure you call your references. And finally, the offer. So this is the offer on the phone, and this is really cool because, again, they like collaboration, they like working together. So if you're gonna start in the pre-lead and you're gonna be, an attorney for the pre-lead department, we'll be like, thank you for accepting the offer. This is awesome. Here's a picture of your team. You're going to be working with them. If they're going to be working in the medical management department, here's a picture. This is the group that you're going to be working with. So we are getting them excited to start here because guess what? Sometimes they get 2 offers from 2 or 3 different law firms, and they don't know which one to pick. Maybe somebody else is paying them $1 more, $1 less, you don't know. So this gets them really excited to be like, I see the people, I see the faces, they look happy, I want to work with them.
So let me talk for a second about virtual assistants, because really, it seems like everyone's now on board with virtual assistants, but when we started, it wasn't quite that way. We have over 50 virtual assistants. We've used services to help us identify virtual assistants. And I got to tell you, it's a game changer. As I said before, people who really love work. Their job is important to them. They have a work ethic that's just through the roof. We're very, very happy with it. But you have to screen them just like anyone else. You can't just hire people, off the cuff. And so virtual assistants have been, as I said, a game changer for us. In Miami, after COVID, I mean, how many people, I can't find candidates, right? Everyone. We're all hurting for people, right? We need to have some way to fill the gap. And so this has really worked for us. We have people now from United States, South America, heavy South America, India, the Philippines, and we have different roles for different people. Philippines and India do more of the initial demand drafting and medical record summaries and that sort of thing. Client facing is more Spanish speakers through Latin and South America, but it has been really a game changer for us. And as I say, I can't imagine us having less than 60% of our staff being virtual assistants when we get there. I think that the vendors here are all good. It's a process. They're learning the process. I was talking to Ethan now. He's saying how he's updating his process for hiring VAs. And we do hire some direct too. We do get some people who come to us and say, I saw you guys, and we'll hire them directly. And if you need information about that, I'll talk to you about how to handle that, because there's some tax things you need to be aware of. But we send them equipment and those sorts of things. So let's talk about the onboarding process, because we're running out of time here.
Okay, so I gotta run. Okay,
Yeah.
onboarding,
Yeah.
they finally got a job, they made it, they're ready to start. This is the IT checklist that they have to go through. So this goes for VAs and in person. They get the same thing. They get monitors, laptop, headset, keyboard, and Assure Sign, Redefine, WebEx, phone access. So this is all they get, and they also the organizational chart, so they know more in details, not only the virtual assistant, but also the in-person that is gonna be working on their team. Then next, we get the swag. So millennials love merchandise. We like to look cool. We like to be, happy coming to work. So when they start at the Word Law Group, they get a cubicle set up like this. And they get a lot of merchandise. These are 3 people that work in our firm. So we come on Tuesdays and Thursdays dressed up this way. So this is our uniform. Why? We want to integrate work-life balance. We want to go work, kill it, get out, go to the gym, exercise. So I found that millennials love this, and it also has been great in recruiting people. They go to the gym, they work out. Hey, what do you do? That's cool. Okay, I want to go there. I want to apply. And they bring in more people by wearing your merchandise. This is for the virtual assistant. They get a magic box delivered to their country where they are, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Mexico, and they get the same things. For those of you that are wondering, IT, this is the laptop that we use. These are like all the characteristics and the headphones. So the VAs and the employees in person get the same thing. So that's exciting, because when we do the huddles, everybody's wearing the merchandise and we all look cool.
By the way, ignore the Star Trek. I just realized that we look like we got security guards and science staff. I don't know if you guys are Star Trek fans, but the original series I saw that, I was like, we got to get a couple of colors up there, because it looks like the red guys are going to be not on the next episode, right? And no Star Trek fans? Come on. Come on. Yeah, thank you. God, man, I'm dying up here. No Star Trek fans. All right, so Ward Law Group University. Again, we're all starting at different places. We're doing this now. We weren't doing this 5 years ago. Right? We've evolved. And COVID was a blessing also, because we had a studio. So we have specific manuals. I want to get to the studio here. Standard operating procedures. And then e-learning with talent. So just before COVID, we just finished building a very small studio with a couple of fixed cameras, a couple of modular sets. And when COVID hit, I was like, what are we going to do? And after I stopped drinking in my swimming pool, I said, well, let's make use of the time. And we started filming training videos. We had the SOPs already, the procedures we wanted to have. And so we brought staff in. We'd have one cameraman, one person, and that was it. And we recorded these training videos. And so now we're beginning to update them. We had a big bank of training videos, because I believed that COVID was going to hit and then we would explode. Why? I didn't cut my advertising at COVID. I said, you know what, take all the ads you're going to give me and blow it up, because everyone's watching TV. And it happened for us. We didn't cut any of our ads. And so that's another thing that really exploded as soon as we came out of COVID. And Florida, fortunately for us, was coming out of COVID, or at least lifted the restrictions sooner than other states. The last step of the...
So the one thing about this is that they do this before they start in person. So all this training that's like online, they do this on the 2 weeks that they're waiting for, to transition to their job. So the first day they already come with a background and basic training. So you're not wasting the first 2 weeks of that employee just sitting around watching videos.
And we monitor that they've completed the training, and we pay them for that. We're not asking them to do anything free. We pay them for that time, but we see how much time they spend on the videos, if they've answered the questions and those kinds of things. So that's another thing that Talent LMS will allow you to do. The last part of the hiring process or the onboarding process is job shadowing and coaching. Obviously, we want to make sure that we get the best candidates. At this point, it's really a 3 to 6 month process where they're learning different phases of the job. And this is something where we want to have objective criteria because you're not going to be training them yourselves. You're going to have other people doing it. So you want to make sure they have a training guideline. So I am getting a red light flashing up here. We've reached the end of our formal remarks. I want to just talk for a couple of minutes about, what I think is the most important part of your firm. First of all, it's never too late, right? If this is pretty sophisticated, it's actually more sophisticated than this, but I try to give you the bare bones of what you need to have a hiring process and onboarding process. We've built it together. It's important to both of us. But I want to talk for a second because I want you to think about our stories for a minute. I wouldn't be me if I didn't tell you what I think is the most important part of our law firms, and that is our faith. You see, everyone comes, I talk at growth conferences. Ken has been kind to let me speak before. But if you want to start talking about growing, right? If you want to scale up and now have all of this great stuff, you really got to get your faith straight. Why? Because you're going to be betrayed. You're going to be hurt. This is only one shield that you have, but the truth is there's still going to be problems you're going to have in your firm. And if you grow, we really have, I'm sure some of you guys are bigger than us, but we have what I consider to be a monster firm now. I never thought I'd be this big. And if I didn't have my faith straight, I would really be in trouble because there's so many hurts along the line. There's some victories like with Sagi, where we had a $100 million plus settlement, confidential, but there's some terrible, terrible problems. I've lost a lot of my friends too, and that's going to happen to you too. You have to be willing to, if you hire your friends, you may have to let those friends go. So you got to get your faith straight. We're Christian. We think everything we do is really for a higher calling. I believe that what all of us do is for a higher calling because we stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. So please get connected with your faith. You don't have to have my faith. You have to have some faith. And even if it's faith in yourself, to be able to go and do these things, you just got to believe in yourself first, or else you won't take that first step.
Yeah, I used to sit there and I used to be overwhelmed and I used to think I'm going to be able to get through this and that's never going to happen. And there's a lot of fear that creeping into my heart. What I can tell you is take a step forward. Just little by little, take a step forward. And I told you about my story because a girl with an accent from Hialeah that didn't speak the language, that didn't have the money, if I can do it, you can do it. This is not rocket science. You can literally get this information and replicate it in your firm. YouTube is there, LinkedIn is there. And I want to tell you something else. We were all afraid during COVID. We didn't know how to do it. But guess what? During really bad time, strong people come out. And that's what we did. It was, we were afraid, we were in pain, but bad times bring strong people. So I encourage you today, if you're in a low, if you're in a bad time, if you don't know where to start, just do a couple of things and start being objective. Don't follow your gut. I've been betrayed by my best friend. She was a controller. She betrayed me. I've been betrayed by case managers that were there from the beginning. Hopefully with this presentation, we put the heart away and we come up with more objective metrics. And if we can do it, you can do it yourself.